Well, most experts predict that we will see a fall in interest rates in 2025. We are going to help you get prepared for a refinance. I'm here with Willis Richardson, and we're going to get started right now. How are things at Pure Funding HQ, Willis?
They're pretty good. Look, we got a lot of rain today. The streets were rivers for a while.
Little rafting down Main Street.
Oh, yeah. That's how we roll.
We are here to talk about things you need to factor in if you are considering a refinance. So we're going to talk about what the numbers should look like, if it makes sense, and just other factors that you need to think about should you have outstanding debt, anything else that might impact the scenario for a refinance. So I guess let's start from the top, right? What is and why would people want to do a rate and term refinance, Willis?
Yeah, so a rate and term refinance just does exactly what the name says. It either changes the rate or it changes the term. And so, if you're changing the rate, that a lot of people understand that makes sense. If you're going from 7.5% to 6.5%, if you're going from 8 to 7, that makes sense, and people wrap their head around that pretty easily. But sometimes you might want to go from a 30-year loan to a 15-year loan. And maybe your payment goes up a little bit, but you're going to save $100,000 in interest paid over the life of the loan. Especially makes sense if you're living in a house that you're going to, that's your forever home. You want to pay it off as quick as you can. You're not moving anywhere. Getting into a lower term loan is going to save you thousands of dollars because you'll pay the loan off quicker and you'll have fewer months where you're paying that interest payment. So the amount that it saves is tons. So, yeah.
Okay, and we're going to talk in a bit about what the numbers should look like, or at least understanding what it's going to take to recoup the cost of doing the refinance. But I think when we speak about refinances, we talk about rate and term, and we talk about cash out. We've done some content on cash out, how you can leverage leverage your property to pay off debt. Now, could you adjust your rate and also take cash out of your property in one transaction?
You definitely can. Working on one right now where a guy bought and he had to go with a certain product at the time. We're lowering it by over 1%, and he's getting cash out, a large amount of equity out of the house to put towards another property that he's getting. So it just depends what your current rate is and what rates are right now on whether we're lowering the rate and also getting cash out. But you know what? About 6 months ago, I helped a guy stay in his house because he had a 3.5% interest rate, which is great, but he also had a lot of debt, and that lot of debt was costing him about $4,000 or $5,000 a month. And so by going from a 3.5% interest rate to a 7.25% interest rate, everyone would say, don't do that. Don't do that. That's the worst thing you could do. But he paid off all that outstanding debt. So he only had one payment per month, which was his mortgage. And that payment was, when you took that payment, even though it increased slightly, it was over $4,000 a month in cash flow savings that he was getting to keep in his pocket, and he was able to keep his house. It's one of the cool things that we get to do when we're looking at what kind of refinance somebody might be willing to do or what they should be doing. But, a lot of people, it will start coming up on their radar here soon because they're going to hear that rates are coming down. And that's the one that everyone thinks about. They think about rate, and rate's super important, but you also have times where you got to think about cash flow. You got to think about your monthly payment and things like that to see the benefit of all the different aspects of what we can do with these loans.
Yeah, I would say it's probably in the discussions that we have about with customers about accessing equity in their property is, no, I don't want to touch the 3%. Right. That's off limits. Like, I'm so happy with that. but I've got a credit card bill at 28% and there's $30,000 on it. And so you
Yeah.
have to kind of step back from it and say, all right, what is my cash flow situation if I adjust this from a 3 to the 7.25 or whatever?
Right.
And like the dollar savings that you're going to see is pretty incredible. And look, I get it. You don't
Yep.
want to abandon that rate. I totally understand. But I think from when you step back from it and look at it from pure dollars and cents and money in your pocket, it's definitely worth considering. So
Oh
let's
yeah.
talk. Let's talk about when it makes sense, right? So
Mhm.
how to look at your rates. You're at 7.5, and you're seeing a 6.5 rate out there that looks appealing. How should people be looking at the math to understand, when it makes sense and what it's going to cost me to actually perform this refinance? How should people think about those numbers?
Yeah, so I would say a good rule of thumb, if you just want to have the simple numbers to think about, is if you can drop your interest rate by 1% or more, it's probably a good idea to refinance.
Okay.
So if you're going from a 7.5 to 6.5, if you're going from a 8 to a 7, if you're going from a 5 to a 4, we're not in the fours.
Yep.
But if you're doing that, it almost always makes sense to do it. Now, to take it a step further and see, maybe you are going from a 7 to a 6.5. Does that make sense? Well, it depends on how long it takes to break even on uh, the cost to refinance and how much you're saving every single month. So, I, if you are breaking even in 12 to 24 months, it's a really good deal. If you're breaking even in 36 months, it's probably a pretty good deal still, especially if you plan to stay in that house for 4, 5, 6 years, then
Yep.
that's just money in your pocket. So in those instances, it makes sense. So best way to do it is, hey, if it costs you $5,000 to refinance your house, and it's going to save you $500 a month, that means you're breaking even in 10 months. That would be considered an excellent deal. Now, those costs are going to get rolled into the loan amount. So you don't have to come to closing with cash if you don't want to. It gets rolled into the loan amount. You leave with a slightly higher loan amount, but a lower payment because of the savings from the lower interest rate. And so, in some cases, some people can do a refinance where it doesn't cost anything. Maybe you go with a 6.5% interest rate instead of a 6% interest rate, and that gives you lender credit to cover all the closing costs. So there's not a lot of closing costs on refinances, but there are some. You still have to
Yep.
pay title. They're not gonna help with your refinance for free. They're a third party company. We have no control over them. They're going to charge their fees. So there's title. You do have freedom in choosing the title company that you want for your refinance, though. You're going to most likely have to pay an appraiser. Sometimes you get an appraisal waiver, but typically think you're going to have to pay an appraiser. You might have to pay a processing fee or an underwriting fee, and then taxes as well. If you're going to escrow, you also have to fund that escrow account. But in most cases, that's a net cost of zero because your old escrow account at your current lender, when that loan gets paid off, they typically send you a refund of that escrow account. If they don't send you a refund, they apply it to the balance needing to be paid to pay off your loan.
Got it.
In most cases, though, you get a physical check within 15 to 30 days after you close on your loan. So
Okay.
setting up an escrow account over here, but getting paid back from your escrow account over here. So
Got it.
yep.
So the kind of just to recap on the math. So Willis mentioned, $5,000. Let's say that's what it's going. That's closing costs. That's everything he just outlined. And then you take that $500 a month that you would be saving in monthly payment, and that's how you determine like that how many months is it going to take to recoup that $5,000. So it's a good rule of thumb to say, all right, well, this is going to be 36 months, and we're probably going to sell in the next 5 years or so. Like you might want to think about it. The other thing to factor in too is if people are paying PMI, right? Private mortgage insurance.
Yeah.
That can be a big a big change. So if you are lowering your rate and you can get rid of mortgage insurance, private mortgage insurance, like now you're talking about a more sizable change in your monthly payment.
Oh yeah, especially if you have like a larger FHA loan. All right,
Yeah.
FHA loans have a flat mortgage insurance. It's just a percentage of the loan amount. And so when you get 4, 5, $600,000 FHA loans in your area in California, that can be a two, three, $400 a month
Yep.
mortgage insurance payment. And so if you go from, and let's say your home has appreciated, FHA loans, contrary to popular belief, your mortgage insurance doesn't come off unless you put a significant amount down up front. You're always going to have it on those loans. So you have to refinance to a conventional loan. So let's say you bought your house, it's appreciated in value. Now you have below 80% loan to value. You've been making your mortgage payment, so your credit score is a lot higher than it was when you bought the house. And you can go from having an FHA loan with a $300 a month mortgage insurance payment to a conventional loan with no mortgage insurance. Even if you kept the same rate, you
You're
would
still
be
saving. Yep.
$300 savings a month. But if we can get that down to maybe 5.5 from a 6 or something like that, you're getting a couple extra hundred on top of that. So that's when it makes sense sometimes to refinance, even though the rate hasn't dropped a full 1% point. So
Yep. I think that's good. I think so. Things to consider is like, one, do you want to change product? Do you want to change term? Are you paying PMI? And are you in a situation to eliminate PMI? And understanding the break-even point for the cost of doing the refinances. Those are some of the factors that you should think about. If you're not doing it today, if you think, hey, look, we're at 7.5, we're seeing the rates go in the right direction, we need to start preparing. Those are some of the things you should talk to your loan officer about. We're more than happy to sit down with you and go through the cash flow analysis and talk about any outstanding debt and how we might be able to eliminate that, save you that money on your monthly payment. So these are all very important factors to consider when you're thinking about refinancing. Willis, as always, thanks so much for taking the time and sharing your wisdom. A reminder to everyone, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like, give us a follow, connect with us on social. We'll keep pumping this stuff out. We really appreciate your support, and I wish everybody a great day, and we look forward to talking to you in the next video. Thanks again, Willis.
you're welcome. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.